Good evening. Welcome to a special extended edition of Inside Government for the fall 2020 semester here at Cuyahoga Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. 2 weeks ago, the Auburn Police Department and Auburn Enlarged School District became aware of a threat made for violence at the junior high next door at the old East Middle. The first was by a 14-year-old student, and a second 3 days later was by a 12-year-old. Both students have been arrested and charged with making, quote, a terrorist threat, end quote. We've asked Auburn Enlarged School District Superintendent Jeff Pirozzolo, as well as Auburn Police Chief James Slayton, on to talk not only about these two cases, but also what is being done when it comes to threats that they have identified, and more importantly, how safe are our schools. We'll also talk about some other secondary issues, such as the most recent police exam and some changes at the Auburn School Board. Gentlemen, welcome. Glad to have you both back. I appreciate this on such short notice for you to come in to talk about such a sensitive subject to start with. So maybe more than anything, because maybe not everybody read the multiple stories here or got a phone call from you at the end of the day. What were the students charged with?
They were initially charged with making a terroristic threat via social media.
And how did it come about? How did I know there's a convoluted? The first one's a convoluted case. The second one seems a little bit more straightforward. So on the first one, how did you become aware of it?
So the first one, we were alerted by somebody that had a conversation with a student that was just escorted out of school.
This student had a problem beforehand.
Correct.
Okay.
That student then made a phone call to somebody else who turned around and called our department and advised us that he had made a threat against the school.
And so I don't know how much detail you can get in, but what type of threat was it? Was it for just violence? Was it gun violence? Was it explosives? What was the, because you're saying terroristic threat. I guess maybe we should start off with this. What is a terroristic threat?
So a terroristic threat is going to cause mass casualties or mass confusion and chaos within the schools. Yes.
Columbine, other communities like that.
Correct. In conversation with the DA's office recently, there's another charge that is making a threat of mass chaos, mass harm.
Okay.
So that's a lower charge, and some of these will fit into that. That's up to us to work with the DA's office to see which actual charge we're going to go with.
So there's a lot of questions I want to throw right off of the bat, but we should have some semblance of order on my part here. So I think the most important question that people would ask in the case of the 14 and the 12-year-old, are they back in school?
No, they are not in school right now. They're facing severe disciplinary charges for an extreme violation of the code of conduct.
So I think there's two parallel tracks here, if I understand it correct. There's the law enforcement track, which will be you and the DA's office and the court system, but there can be an internal track as well because of violations within the Auburn School District parameters.
Correct.
So let's deal with yours first, because yours tend to result in, well, I guess, are they charges? There's 12 and 14, so how?
Correct.
So they're juveniles.
Charged as juveniles, correct. So they'll go through a different path than in criminal court. They'll go through youth court, through a probationary process.
And in dealing with these, is there a likelihood that they will be serve time? I guess that's the...
Not in all likelihood.
Okay.
It wouldn't do justice to everybody in this situation. The key factor here is both the school district and the police department acted swiftly to both our credits, and made sure everybody was safe and made the public aware of what was going on.
So what was the nature of the second threat?
The second threat was another social media threat, and in both these instances, somebody came forward to alert us, which is what we need. A parent had contacted us and said one of their children had showed them something they saw on social media. We followed it up. We were able to get that person and their parent in, talk to them, and then from there we made the charge.
So in the first case, I know there was a two-prong here. Originally, the first group that found out about this was Auburn, Alabama. I'm assuming, am I correct on this? So it was the police department in Auburn, Alabama?
You're correct. It went through a system and it got alerted by the FBI. Auburn, Alabama ended up calling us saying, hey, we did the background, we did the IP address, and it didn't come back to Auburn, Alabama. It came back to Auburn, New York.
Okay.
So which shows that collaboration that we have with other agencies, not only our local school district, but other agencies, to have that done in the same day, to me was pretty good police work.
And not that I'm a fan of Facebook, and I don't have an account, but it does sound like in one of these rare instances, Facebook was helpful.
The social media platforms are tough because we have to get subpoenas not only for the IP addresses, but for each individual account they're using. So if it's Snapchat, if it gets sent from Facebook to a Snapchat to another account, we have to get different subpoenas for each one of those.
But in this second case, did Facebook, or in the first case, the 14-year-old, did Facebook contact you first, or did you have to go to them?
No, we had to go to them.
Oh, you had to go to them. Okay. So second case, it was a parent made contact. Do they contact you? Do they contact you? Do they contact you both? How do you hear about this?
Well, in many instances, they usually reach out to the school principal. But in this case, I believe they went directly to Chief Slayton in the police department.
And you don't care where they go. Just go.
So that
one of the two of
something.
you needs to be contacted.
Correct.
So if I can answer that,
Sure.
The second instance, I happened to be in the command center, and I heard the sergeant on the phone. The person on the other end, I could tell, was asking who had access to our Facebook account because somebody sent an instant message to our Facebook account. So initially, they didn't call the police.
Oh.
They sent the complaint to our Facebook account, which I have access to. I logged on and told him to grab a detective. The captain of detectives was there, and they took it, ran with it from there.
So I think when you were on a couple of times ago, I think you were here with Officer Dan, your predecessor, Chief Butler. We talked a little bit about how the department is looking at cyber threats now. Is that a big piece of your work now, or is it? Well, most likely is understaffed, because we'll get to your staffing in a moment, because you are understaffed. You're how many officers short right now? 5. So that's out of a 64, 68 member department. That's a lot.
Yes.
So how do you deal with, other than you checking Facebook, and if somebody's instantly messaging you?
We have an automatic message that comes up on a reply that tells them if this is an emergency to contact 911. Don't leave a complaint on our Facebook page, but people do.
Okay.
So we check it regularly. I check it every day. We have a civilian that has access to it and checks it every day along with me. And then if we see anything on there, we take it from there. But to answer your question, as far as it's a daunting task. We have to download phones. We have to get subpoenas. We have to get search warrants. So it's something that's not just go out, see the individual do something, and make an arrest right there. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work in it.
And what does the district do when it comes to monitoring cyber threats?
So, and that's a great question. And, I think in my second message to the community was, parents, we need your help. Locally, ourselves, our director of technology, Tom Bunn, we have programming. So all of our kids have devices, and those devices are monitored. So we monitor 4,100 devices 24/7.
So are those tablets that can go home with students, they're Wi-Fi?
Yes.
And can they get on Netscape or whatever? They can go to the internet directly through there.
Correct.
So are those tablets or computers, do they bar Facebook and Instagram and TikTok?
Yeah, we have a lot of restrictions on those, but we also have programming so that if somebody is Googling or comes up with, even like in the same sentence, school and shooting, we get a red flag sent to us immediately.
So if somebody was going to, let me just either Uvalde or Columbine, if somebody popped up either of those communities, you'll get a notice if it says shooting in a school.
Correct.
Okay.
So again, we have the capability of monitoring 4,100, laptops, Chromebooks, 24/7, and unfortunately, sometimes.
Well, I'm thinking that's overwhelming.
It is for my technology people, but they.
So how large a department do you have?
We probably got like 9 people total in the technology.
But they're dealing
department.
with other items.
Oh yeah, they deal with a lot
up
more.
Zoom meetings and.
Right, but they get those alerts sent right to their phones, so they're notified immediately if we have an issue like that. The issue that we have is we can't monitor students' personal phones. So, that's why I'm reaching out to parents saying we need your help.
So you did say that. So you said, what does that mean? When you say reach out to parents to ask for their help, what do you mean?
Having conversations with parents, knowing sort of what they're doing on social media and on their cell phones. We can't control everything. The first actual threat happened on a Friday. We had a staff development day. Kids weren't even in school. So, kids had their access to their own personal cell phones all day long. The other one happened on a Monday evening around 5 o'clock at night. So, unfortunately, these things are going to happen. But the more we can continue to educate our kids and having parents have conversations with their kids about appropriate uses of cell phones, that's going to help. We're going to have our SROs going in and doing lessons with our kids at the high school, the junior high, and elementary school, just about appropriate uses. Because, again, we want to make sure kids are being appropriate with their cell phones. These are unfortunate instances that happen that get kids caught up in legal issues as well as consequences in the schools.
So one more question on this, and let's go back to the chief on cyber threats. If a student goes into, I know this became an issue during COVID, where you wanted to create hotspots, positive way hotspots, for students to have access so they could do lessons and look up assignments and items like that. If a student's either at the junior high or the high school, I'm assuming those are still hotspots and Wi-Fi sites where they can do anything they want on the phone. Am I correct?
On their own personal
on their
phone,
own.
yeah. And we still.
So how do you monitor that?
Well, again, that's a whole nother issue, right? And I think that's really where we need parents' guidance and supervision and conversation.
So specifically, you're asking them to talk to their child to talk about
appropriate.
So, okay. And I know when you were on, again, this has got to go back how long have you been chief now? 2 years?
Year and a half.
Year and a half. Feels like.
That's another show.
That's another show. Oh, we'll have you back on for that. But when I think it was when you were with Officer Dan, because you were, we should say for the record, you used to be an SRO.
Correct.
So you have a background in this. You most likely, more than anybody else who's been chief ever, know the in and outs of this particular issue from an SRO perspective. But I know you have had staff development where your SROs have talked to students about bullying and online threats. Is that still something you're doing through SROs?
We get into classrooms whenever we can, and that's something that, like you say, I was an SRO, so all this stuff is personal to me. I talked at the school board meeting the other night, and I said, when we have staff days or just get in and talking to kids, let them know there's consequences for their actions. They just will post something. It's not a joke. They look at it as a joke, but they end up in a court system. They end up getting suspended from school. So there's real consequences for their actions.
Going back to the cyber threat, how much staff time? Do you have a full-time person that looks at cyber here?
No, we take into every individual case and it gets assigned to somebody. Usually initially an officer will start, and that's what happened in both these cases. It went to an officer. They take it as far as they can, and then they're like, okay, I need to get somebody in that has a little more knowledge or can dump a phone or write a search warrant and get a subpoena from a judge. So that's when we typically
And how
get
quick is that process?
In these particular cases, it was done pretty quick. It was done within that day.
Okay.
Which everything just lined up for us as far as we were able to get it done. We had the staff there, the people that could access the devices, and the parents were ready, available to come in with their children.
So what was the conversation like with the parents of these children?
Well, a lot of times the parents don't know. They don't know what their
Well, I would
children
hope
are
they
doing
don't
on their
know.
phones. And it's about educating them too. So like Jeff said, we can't monitor them all the time. We can't go up to somebody and just take their phone and go through it. Everybody has rights. We have to get subpoenas, and if the parent's there and the parents are paying the bill and they allow them to open it up and go through it, that's a different story. We have them sign waivers, Miranda, and then we can go through the phone.
So you were an SRO before there were the readily available, I'm not saying a flip phone, but a readily available access for students to have phones. We look at how many millions of them are floating around this country now. You were a teacher at some point where you didn't have to worry about, the worry you had was somebody brought a calculator to math class.
Correct.
Now their phones are the calculator. Can you even keep up with the technology and the challenge?
It's more about the phone itself. There's kids and children out there today that you go to take their phone away from them. Actually, being a parent, it creates chaos. The police are called. We just had one this week where a parent was like, my kid won't give me my phone back. I pay for it. They won't give me the phone. And next thing you know, the police are in your house dealing with that.
And what is the end result on that? Not on that particular case, but do you get the phone back?
Yes.
Okay. You will get the phone back. Okay. It helps with
and once again, it's that conversation of you're not paying for that phone. Your parents are paying that. You don't have a job. You don't pay for it. That's your parents' phone.
Right.
They have every right to take it away. It's just sad that the police have to get involved. We have to go there if there's other kids in the house younger and they see that. It's a bad look.
Okay. So I want to ask the big question, which is really maybe simplistic. Once you found out about the threat, not who the student was, what would have happened from your perspective and from your perspective of what you would have done operationally? Would you have still opened school? What would you have done for law enforcement if you did not know who the individuals were or they did not show up with their parents? Because I think that's the bigger question for families right now about how safe their schools are. What happens when you don't? There's a glitch between the two. Forget that you don't know about it, but you know about the threat, but you don't know who.
There's a difference in the level of threats. Is somebody saying, I'm going to shoot up a school? Okay, then we have to look at, do they have the means to do that? And then there's other ones with pictures of people with guns saying, I'm going to blow up or shoot up a school. That's a different level. We automatically, like I said, we'll get our detectives involved. We start the process, and usually it'll be our SRO supervisor will reach out to somebody in the schools, and we correlate together. So they know when we know.
Because you had shut down the school, was it that week or the week before on a different incident? Hadn't you shut down the junior high at one point recently? Because you had a threat?
No, we haven't been shut down once this year.
Okay.
And again, I think that threat assessment is the key piece. The thing that was remarkable in these two situations is how quickly the police department found the culprit and made the arrest. I mean, it's unheard of two incidents like that being done within a few hours, which again, we're very appreciative of because that takes care of the threat so that we can move to the next stage. But in that case, like the chief is saying is, we work with the police department on the threat assessment piece and, how severe is this threat? Where do we have to go to next? So again, we get our guidance from the police department because they're the experts in it.
So it could have resulted, if it was during the day, could have either resulted in a lockdown. Normally would it result in the closing down of the school immediately? When I say closing down, or releasing students.
Well, and again, I think it's the severity of the threat, right? Is there a time? Is there a place? What is the details in the message? Because again, sometimes you'll get a threat that we're going to shoot up the school, and that goes throughout the country. Nobody knows what school it is.
Right.
Nobody knows what day it is. Nobody knows where it originated from. These are the things that we ask why do we lose sleep? This is why we lose sleep in a school is because of safety.
So was go ahead, Chief.
No, I was going to say, and on that line, if we're following up those leads on the threats, and that person is on school grounds, the last thing we want to do is let people out of school.
Right. That's why I was asking.
Back when I was an SRO, we learned that going through all the schools we went to and the other shooters and stuff, they would pull the fire alarm. And people would hear the fire alarm, and they would scatter, and then they would wait and shoot people when they were leaving.
So in this particular, because you had two cases so close to each other, do you think the 12-year-old was a copycat?
No, I believe
you think they were just
unrelated.
Unrelated?
It's young minds not knowing the consequences that come with, I can just put whatever I want out there. No one's ever going to find that it's me, and
Right.
what's going to happen to me.
So a viewer question of sorts is, I think you're quoted as saying there was no immediate, one of you, but I think it was you, Superintendent, said there's no immediate threat. So the reverse of that is there a long-term threat?
Yeah, and again, we get our information from the police officers. So when I spoke to the detective, informed us that one was, he used the word, it was a joke. The other one was, it wasn't serious. The kid wasn't going to do this. I can't really make the determination. I can only tell me what the experts tell me. So again, that was just repeating what.
Well, you can't afford this to take it as a joke.
And put it this way, even though we report that in the newspaper, that's the response, and that's what the detective found out. We don't take it as a joke, nor does the police department. Thus, the arrest was made. Thus, school consequences are being in place. It's far from a joke.
So the district has gone through, last time you were here, we started talking about it, and then time ran out. I know you're our all-time champion guest here. She wants to be number 2 here.
Yes, he
he's
does.
okay. You taxpayers have spent an enormous amount of money, rightfully so, on this issue of hardening entrances. All 5 elementary schools are done, correct?
All 5 elementary schools are done. Triple buzzer system. So getting into our schools is very, very difficult. You've got to
I had parent-teacher yesterday, and it was very
correct.
I
And
walked through the whole process.
that was purposeful.
Okay.
And we've done a lot more hardening of the outside exterior of the buildings. And so, we put a lot of strategic planning in place to make sure that our kids are safe.
So where are you on the junior high and the high school? Are they completed, or have you done what you wanted to do there?
So the high school has a secure vestibule as well. So you have to be buzzed in to get into the high school and the junior high. We have 0-point access to all of our buildings. All of our doors are locked at all times. You have to be buzzed in at all 7 of our buildings, 8 of our buildings, even at Tubman, you have to be buzzed in. But at the high school and the junior high, we have monitors, actually security monitors, that really station those front doors. So they do all the questioning. Elementary, it's a little bit safer because, again, they have to be buzzed in 3 times. The junior high will be done 2 summers from now. Our junior high will have the same buzz-in system as our junior high or our elementaries. Our high school is very difficult because our main office is completely across the hallway. So we're just going to keep those 2 secure doors locked at all time and continue to buzz in using security.
So are there special steps that you will take are there any special protocols that are in place right now with the junior high, because you won't be doing construction for another 2 years?
Yes, we have 2 security monitors at those front doors at all times at the high school and
so the high school, after this is all done, you will still have monitors there.
Correct.
And at the junior high, when will that be completed?
Not this coming summer, but the following summer of 24.
So can we talk a little bit about SROs? We usually wait to always when Lisa Green and you come on, your business manager in April or May when we talk about the budget. But how many SROs do we have currently right now?
We have 3 full-time SROs.
So he just mentioned 8 buildings, take Tubman out, so that's 7.
So what we did is, for the first time last year, we hired special patrol officers, SPOs, former police officers that come back and work in the school district. We tried it last year. They worked 4 hours, did half a days at schools, and rotated throughout the buildings. Jeff came to us and said, hey, I'd like to have them there full-time. We were able to talk to the SPOs, and they all agreed, yeah, we'll come back full-time. And then one of them ended up leaving for Syracuse, so we just hired 2 former police officers to come back to fill. Now we have them in all the schools every day.
So all 7 buildings have somebody there all the time now. Okay. Who pays for that? Okay. So the district.
Yeah, Chief Slayton won't pay anything.
We incur a lot of the costs, onboarding.
Well, this was an issue about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was the question about.
We phased it out. We phased it out in the contract, the last contract. This contract, though, Chief Slayton and I got together, and we wanted to create more bang for our buck. because we really weren't happy with only having 3 or 4 SROs, plus of the shortage of police officers. So we thought, what is a way that we could get more for our money? And that's where we came up with the SPO. So we talked about a hybrid school calendar for the year of COVID. We sort of came up with a hybrid contract where we could bring on more SPOs versus paying one full salary of an SRO.
So this is throughout the country.
Right.
I mean, Syracuse is hiring them. A lot of people, police officers are retiring and going right into the schools as SPOs.
So we apparently have not come a long way from Columbine, other than more school shootings, and obviously the most high-profile one of the last couple of months has been Uvalde, and the response from police. So what, from your perspective as a chief, not about what they did, other than how are you have a tactical unit, you have SROs, how do you prepare for an event that might occur?
Well, we learned from our mistakes, first of all. So in Columbine, they waited till their emergency response or SWAT teams got together and they could still hear shooting going on. Then we went to a model where we had a diamond shaped. You waited for the first 4 officers. They went as a team, and then the next 4 officers went as another team and started clearing the building. And now it's when you hear gunfire, you go in. You're not waiting for anybody. Because what we've come across is that shooter, when they come across somebody that is either shooting back at them or presents a challenge to them, stop, kill themselves, or something else.
Okay, so your response has evolved, so you don't have a Texas type situation.
Correct.
How much of all of this is a mental health component?
So, and again, I'll tell you one of the things that we work on hard with the police department is we're the ones that try to create as many barriers as we can. And we create those barriers so the response time for the police department, to give them time to get there to take care of the threat, right? So that's why we do, the 3 buzzer-in system. That's why we do the hardening. That's why we lock our doors. Our classroom teachers lock their doors. We try to create those barriers so the response time can be really quick and take care of the threat. One thing that our police department, Auburn Police Department, has been working with the Sheriff's Department over the past few years on their threat assessment piece. But Sheriff Skank has actually pulled all the superintendents in the whole county, and we are all working as one county right now, not separate school districts. So we're using all the same threat assessment paperwork. And again, a lot of this deals with mental health issues. And we see since COVID, the increase in mental health issues has more than quadrupled. So, this allows our police departments, which Auburn Police Department's always been part of the sheriff's threat assessment team, but it's pulled in educators now. George Whipple, who's a social worker at the high school, is now part of that team. So we share concerns. We have those conversations so the police are informed of some of the things the schools are dealing with.
So concern, but what directly on the mental health front? I understand the concern piece, but are there services that are needed that are not being delivered because they may be budgetary, maybe staffing? Yeah, how do you deal with this? Because obviously one would think a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old they had the facility enough to put it online, but clearly not everything was working, and I don't know who these students are. Not everything was working up here, other than they could post. They were not able to process that what they were doing was wrong.
Well, Assemblyman Lamondes last week had a security and safety presentation at OCM BOCES, and I attended with my team. Sheriff Skank was there as well, and we actually did sort of like a debriefing where the superintendents would go up and testify, and so were the officers. And that was one of the pieces that I brought up is, we have kids that are going to Cayuga counseling, and the wait list is you're 200 in line. They don't have enough staff we need more counselors. We need more therapists. We need these people to help our children because the wait list is so big.
How concerned are you about access to firearms?
Well, that's always the case. And now what the trend that we're seeing is the BB gun, the pellet guns that look exactly like the guns that police officers carry. There's no indication that they are not
Airsofts that are not.
Airsoft, right. They're in most cases, there's a lot being posted online, and that's what they are. But even for us to look at them, you would not know by a picture.
So is it time to install metal detectors at our schools in Auburn?
And again, that's a conversation I've been having for quite a while. And, you know, some of the issues that come up with the metal, and really they're called weapon detectors. It's not really metal detectors. So it's imaging. So you walk through and you have to have people watching and monitoring the system at all times.
Well, it means resources. I mean, it's not only just a piece of machinery.
It's a lot of resources, staff. But it also brings up, you know, what are we doing at nighttime when we have basketball games? People have access to that building, not only during school time, but weekends. And do we have to monitor those all weekend long? Because, again...
So are we at a point where we have to do that?
And some school districts are, and that's the conversation that we
because I think in Onondaga County they did that at the beginning of September, and there was parental outrage, or there was some outrage from some people in the community. But
again, this is about safety. This is about our children being safe and our staff being safe, and whatever means that is, we will go, you know, and do what we have to install that. But again, we want to make sure it's the right thing to do. And is that really going to solve our problem? And that's why I think we need more information with that.
And this is not just, you know, we're talking about students to this. I know that back, I think in the end of last school year, you had a parental issue where a parent came into or was trying to get into at Herman Avenue. And you said, how do you deal with parents and all that? Is that just the securing, the hardening of the entrances?
Yeah, and again, we don't have to let them in. And even if they got in one set of doors, there's two more set of doors they have to get through. The police are there within seconds.
So how safe are our schools at this point?
And again, I can't guarantee anything, but I can tell you with the help of Auburn Police Department, and again, state troopers and our sheriffs, I mean, I think we've made our schools very safe. And with having SROs in our buildings at all times. Now think about it. When I first became superintendent, we had 2 SROs at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and we only had 1 that rotated to each elementary. So on 4 days, you had no SROs. Last year, we instituted where we had it about 75%. This year, we're 100%. You know, once I get my kids in school, I feel a lot better. But again, we can't control social media, and all we can ask parents to do is not only, you know, educating and talking to your kids, but also calling the police department or the school district if they know anything.
So we talk about schools, but we know over the July 4th weekend in the Midwest, there was a 4th of July event. People get shot in a parade. So how safe is our community?
You know, it's only as safe as the community members we have, and we can't be everywhere. We are, like I say, a 63 department force. We do the best we can. We can't be everywhere. So having a community that is involved with your police department, with your school districts, is more sets of eyes for us. If they see something going on, they call us.
And that's why you do at McDonald's, you do coffee with the chief or
coffee with a cop. Yeah. We get out in the community. I put somebody downtown this summer to walk because that's what the people wanted, and they're more likely to come up and engage with a police officer walking.
So 2 or 3 minutes left. I want to ask about something totally unrelated in part. When you were last here, you talked about reassignments of school principals, that you had some changes as a new principal at Herman. You moved Herman's Casey Park's principal to Herman to Owasco, and I hear Batman was on the roof or was very active at Owasco yesterday. which is always great from a law enforcement point of view. But since then, it sounds like you have had a staff change at Casey Park.
Yes, the principal that started there at the beginning of the year has resigned her position and has left.
Is the assistant still there?
The assistant principal is still there. Dr. Braxton is still there, and I've called on my
I'm getting to that.
I called out to Mickey Cuevas Post. She's my go-to person, and she's done a lot of interim positions for me.
So she was a Wasco school. I believe, while you may have the record for show appearances, she has the record for interim principal positions in Auburn.
Paul Delapiano, Mr. Gacciardi, and now Mickey. Yeah.
So you do have an opening there. How long until you think you can fill that?
We posted the position, so I think it's got about another week to go, and then we'll get our teacher committees and teacher aides, our staff committees together. We'll start the interviewing process. Hopefully be able to find a qualified candidate. In that case, most of them work for other districts, so they have to give a 30 or 60-day notice. So we're hoping to have somebody in by January 1st.
I know we've talked on a couple of occasions when you've been here alone without a co-host with me. Has been this issue of trying to recruit police officers, and I know last time you were on, you had about 6 vacancies on, and if I could say this, you've been very nice to come on here, and I don't say this to be patronizing. You came on here last time when you had a real troublesome issue as well. I don't want you on anymore. No, but you had a personnel issue where you lost an officer who is moving his case is moving through the court system. But one of the items that came up during that discussion was you had a 6th vacancy at that point. So you went through the process and you did have a test in mid-September.
Correct.
For that. So you of a 68-member force, how many vacancies you have? How many vacancies right now?
We have 5 right now.
Okay, so that's a chunk.
Yes.
Especially if you're trying to have SROs and SPOs and whatnot. How many people took the exam back in September?
There were 71 people signed up for the exam. Only 43 showed up to take it.
Do you know why there's such a drop on that? And when I say this about you're having a problem, all law enforcement, the ads that we saw in Syracuse, I think Ben Walsh, the mayor of Syracuse, he swore in a class of what, 4?
4. That's unheard of for Syracuse.
I know. So it's just not Auburn, and we want to make that clear. It's not just police departments, it's sheriff's departments and whatnot. Why do you get the drop if somebody's paying that money to take exam? Have you ever seen almost half not show up?
It's not that many, but what we're finding out is people are just pleasing their parents or others that are pushing them to take it. So they're like, all right, I'll sign up with no intention of coming to it.
Okay.
So then that drops us down to half, 43, and only 14 showed up for the agility. Passed the agility.
So you are concurrently, which I don't think you normally do if you had a large list, you're concurrently doing other pieces of your work. When will you get your results?
So we did something different this time. We had the agility test before we got the test results back. It's more tasking for us to do it that way because we're possibly doing a background on somebody that didn't pass the test.
So you've done agility.
We've done the agility.
So how many did you get to do agility?
14 passed.
So you're now down to 14 possible candidates. Now you've got, when will you get your exam back?
The scores should be back sometime early December.
So you may lose some people who may not be ranked in that. Correct. So I'm assuming if somebody doesn't show up for agility or doesn't pass the background check, they're eliminated from the list. They're not reachable.
Correct.
They can't come back at some later day and say, I want my agility test now.
No.
Okay. And then you still have to do background.
Yes.
I refer to when the 3 of you were here years ago. I think Chief Butler said that your breakage after agility and after the test is about half on top of that.
Yeah.
So you could be down to 7 candidates for 5 positions if you're lucky.
Correct.
How long does it then take them to get on the road?
So then once they go to the academy is 27 weeks long, and then they go another 18 weeks with a field training officer, and then they're on their own.
So your thought is, when will they be on the road? If you hired somebody on January 1st, when will they be on the road on their own?
The following November.
So we're still looking a year from now. So if I remember correctly, you can only give the test once a year?
Correct.
So whatever list you get in a month from now, that's good till next year, and you can't
We can't give another one until at least September of next year.
So one of the things that the city of Auburn is allowed to, and I was going to talk to City Manager Geiger. No, City Manager Geiger. Another Jeff on top of this was this issue of laterals. So you can recruit from other departments. Are you even in that realm at this stage?
A lot of departments are doing that now. Syracuse just put something out this week that they're offering $10,000 bonus for a sign-on for a lateral to come to their department.
And you're not there yet?
No.
Okay. So I do want to thank both of you again for a really sensitive subject for being here. We've had Auburn Superintendent of Schools Jeff Pirozzolo, as well as Auburn Police Chief James Slayton, for our guests for the last 45 minutes. We thank you for taking time out of your schedule. Keep our district safe. Keep our community safe. It's a tough job, and you never know what's coming out there, it sounds like.
And Guy, thank you for having us, because it is a tough topic. And also congratulations to Chief Slayton, who Saturday is going to be inducted into the Auburn Athletic Hall of Fame. So I will be there Saturday to celebrate.
Well deserved.
Yes, absolutely. But that shows you the commitment he has for our school district and the love for the school district. And safety is his concern as well as mine. And we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, guys, for having me on the show.
We'll have you back soon, but hopefully on just a general conversation here. We will be back on Election Day next week with David Gould, the chairman of the Cuyahoga County Legislature, as well as Danielle Wright, who's the executive director. We had planned to have it today, but we're moving it off till next week. Danielle Wright, the executive director of the E. John Gavra Center, as well as their community liaison, Robert Padula. They'll be on next week with David Gould, and then in 2 weeks, we'll finish off our season with our discussion with City Manager Jeff Geiger, who will be on to give us a city update, as well as Stephanie Hutchinson, the executive director of the Auburn Housing Authority, to talk about some massive building projects they have been working on and the work that she and her agency do. In the meantime, if you have questions for any of those individuals, you can send them to cozguytho@aol.com. And then we will ask them of them, as we did today for our guest today. In the meantime, I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We want to thank you for watching, and be safe.